I'm doing this all for the first time, so please be forgiven. There we go. All right, well, hey everybody. So I haven't posted anything in a few months, and I haven't talked to anybody, I mean the Psychopolitica subscribers, in a while. I used to do that, to post things, and when I would post a thing, there would be a button that would allow anybody to book a conversation with me, and I've done like maybe 20 of those. And those were some of the most exciting, not exciting, it's the, I don't know exactly what the word is, cherished experiences, because it's something very simple, something very straightforward, nothing special is happening, nothing, there's no expectation, we're not trying to produce content or anything, it's just a person deciding to devote their attention to another person for an hour or two. And there's something special about that. So I've met through this people from maybe a dozen of different countries, men, women, old, young, doctors. There's a Serbian psychiatrist from Belgrade who said he used to work at a old-fashioned madhouse. There is, I'm not gonna list, it's just like people from all walks of life with different kinds of attitude towards life, different kinds of outlook. And each was interesting, and it was just really cool to meet a person and say, you know, what's up? There's one guy, YOLO. We talked maybe 3 times. He's from South Africa, young, black, guy from South Africa. The first 2 conversations, we barely really talked because the connection was so bad, because he lived in a village someplace and the internet is bad there. And by the 3rd time we're catching up, I was in Amsterdam for a summer school about the psychedelics, history of psychedelics, with Eric Davis and Christian Greer, a fascinating course. And I was in my dorm, and we scheduled another conversation. And it was such a fun, special experience where, like, I'm in a foreign country again, with socializing with new people. It's a little overwhelming. And then I'm kind of touching base with what feels like a friend or a relative, you know, one of my people, who is a dude I don't know. I've met him before 2 times virtually, and the connection was so bad that we were able to exchange just a few, you know, bits and pieces. And the conversation was about nothing. It was like he moved to a city because he needs a job. He had a cool hat on. I was telling him about the Amsterdam experience. He ran away from the cops after doing some graffiti on the bridge. It was just, you know, chatter. But there's something really fucking special about these kinds of connections. So I've been very happy with those. And the one reservation I've had about them is, you know, after I had like 10 of those, my feeling is, what an incredible community. But the community is not aware that they are a community, because they're talking to me one after another, and there's not a collectivity being formed. And so I've been wanting to try this format with a call-in, where I would add one person and another person and another person, and then through these conversations, you guys are going to become aware of each other. And I haven't done that until now, really, just because it's kind of scary to start. But since today is, what I hear from the media, a historic day, there's an election in the US, I thought, why not? It's hard for me to really care about the election in the US the way I hear many Americans do, because it's far away, it's removed. Even when I lived in, I spent like a little more than a year in the United States. Even then, I didn't feel quite the same connection to actual surroundings as I do with, to my home. Like, I remember at the time there were BLM protests in Houston. I actually attended a couple to see what's up, and there's like horse police and people marching down the street, and there's it's a real thing happening. And the reason people are out in the streets is because people died, so it's a real thing. But for me at the time, when I would check my news feed and see news about people being arrested at protests in Russia, even though that is virtual, I was physically in Houston. Those news from Russia somehow felt real, and the reality that I was observing in the United States somehow felt like a game or something. And it's probably just because it's a different culture and I don't connect to it on the same visceral level. With election, I think it's a little more than that, because it's weird and theatrical and chaotic, and it's a reality show on steroids, and both candidates are strange characters in different ways. But regardless, it is history happening, and I have found that it's kind of fun to be around other people when history is happening. It's kind of a nice experience. Like when, COVID started happening and people were figuring out whether they should shut down at home or not, when the borders were starting to close, or when the borders started to open again. It's nice to have somebody to go through this with. Lately, there have been grim historical turns that uprooted me. I left Russia, I went to Armenia, then I went to here to Spain, and all of these people were leaving Russia at the same time, and somebody would stay at my place when we lived in Yerevan. I met people through hosting them as guests, because a dude just flew out of Russia, landed in Yerevan, doesn't have anywhere to live. He's a friend of a friend, so I can provide a space, and we meet through that. And those connections were also, there's a special quality, there's a special cozy quality about meeting people while history is happening at the same time. So I thought, okay, Americans are electing a president, why not use this as a kind of in the ass for myself to actually try to do this thing. So, Stephanie, I think you're unmuted now.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. Nice to see you here.
Hello. Also, I mean, it's an interesting day to do it while we're having an election, to chat and to hear our different voices. And we won't really know about the election apparently for some time.
That's what I'm hearing. I don't understand how people are so sure about this, though.
Because it's been getting worse since 2000. With when Gore maybe won but didn't win.
Right.
Since then, it gets slower and slower. I think for procedural reasons, actual procedural reasons, but also now you get challenges and.
Are you stressing out about this one?
What?
Are you stressing out about this
I'm
election?
not stressed, no, because I have been disenfranchised from both parties entirely a while ago. So I can do nothing but watch and see what the people around me want. What I care about mostly is foreign policy, and I can't. They're both horrible, and So I voted by mail, so I don't have to go out because I'm very lazy.
Can I ask who for?
For Dr. Cornel West. I'm not in a swing state, so that's yet again, my vote doesn't actually matter. Right. Plus the Electoral College, so it's just my conscience. It's not, there's no bread and butter that'll come to me that I like,
That's kind of, that's what I was thinking. I would probably
they seem
do
like
if I
the
were
same
American.
party, only one is joyful and one is a bad insult comedian. So it doesn't seem real to me. I split my ticket 3 ways, actually, 1 independent, 1 Republican, and 1 Democrat, because I think things are shifting in ways that, and I don't think they'll ever shift the way of having a more rational foreign policy and not extractive and murdering. I've kind of given up on that.
There is I was just talking to somebody, some Russian, a couple of days ago, and we were saying that observing America today, like this political reality of the US today, kind of feels like home, because it's reminiscent of the 1990s in Russia in some ways. Like with Musk buying Twitter, you see, like, we had these oligarchs who would buy a TV channel and try to become a political force. Trump is very much like, there was this politician called Zhirinovsky, who was, his whole shtick was to be over the top and say, the most outlandish things. But his career was different. He enjoyed popularity in the early 90s. I think his party got like if not the majority, then a huge chunk of seats in the parliament at one point. But that was the high mark. And then he moved into the role of sanctioned opposition. So he would be the outlandish guy saying the most nationalistic at one time, misogynist at a different time, whatever. He was an artist with how he did those things. He was entertaining to watch until you got sick of him. But he found a niche. He would just do that to get the, some percentage of the protest vote in every election, knowing that he will never, ever lead anything. He will never be an actual political force. He's just going to be the loudmouth, sort of siphoning off some of the protest vote to himself. And the joke was, when I was a kid, there was a joke. Sometimes I wish I could hit save button and vote for Zhirinovsky. And America looks like just voted for Zhirinovsky, for Trump as an alternative.
And I I'm waiting for another Jimmy Carter. And I did. Somebody asked. I'm in Virginia. Someone had asked. And I did vote for the local elections. 1 Democrat, 1 Republican.
Jason, I've been meaning to ask you. So Jason is here, and I know that when he was 20 something, you ran for some kind of a position someplace. Can you tell me about this?
I ran for mayor of my hometown.
Mayor of your hometown.
When I was 20 years old.
Tell the story. I've seen like posters, I think, but I don't know anything about that story.
Yeah, well, I was just really into politics when I was a teenager, and it occurred to me that the only requirement for being mayor, I grew up in Concord, California. And the only requirement for being mayor was that you be of voting age and not a felon. So the moment I turned 18, I qualified. So it was just a matter of waiting until an election year came up, and to get your name on the ballot only required 20 signatures. So you have to collect signatures of registered voters when you want to get something on, like an initiative or whatever, if you want to run as a candidate for your issue or your name to be on the ballot. And 20 seemed like a pretty low bar. So I just stood out in front of a Safeway, like the grocery store in town, over a couple of weekends and had no signatures. It was very easy. I'm not sure it's still true. There's about 150,000 people in Concord now. I don't know if they're still only asking for 20 nominations.
Did you get any votes?
I got about 10%.
That's not bad.
This was in 2000 when, so it was kind of it was a heated national election. It was the Bush-Gore, which is probably, a little bit of a preview of what we're going to see around this time, I think. I saw someone on Twitter saying something along the lines of, today everyone is an election expert, but tomorrow they're going to become a legal expert as everyone susses this out over the next few weeks. But yeah, unfortunately you weren't able to declare party affiliation for city elections. I think that's usually the case. And it's probably for the best, actually. But because I didn't have, because you're not, it's not a party affiliated endeavor, you don't really get the benefit of a party's financial apparatus. So I was running without any budget.
You didn't you do, I think I saw a newspaper clipping or something that you posted about some kind of a PR stunt that you pulled off.
Well, I did a few. Yeah, one was I went to I was going to council meetings because there's really no other. Who was even paying attention? It seemed like, and this was, the internet was around obviously in 2000, but it was not what it is today. People really weren't dialed in. No one was really paying attention. There was no way to make waves quickly and easily. So, if anyone was watching, it was just people who were already at the council meetings for other reasons. People who had their development projects or whatever, some zoning thing that they wanted passed. So it wasn't like there was like a big crowd of people who were engaged in some hot button political issue of the day. So, but I don't know. So I did what I could to try and stir stuff up. And one thing I noticed about the city council back then was that they were getting a lot of money from companies that were based on the East Coast, which didn't make sense to me. So I went to their meetings. One of the meetings I went to, I made them all paper hats with the logos of their out-of-state sponsors on them.
That's
so
nice.
That they could wear them on, because these were televised. So viewers at home could see who they actually represented, because it wasn't anyone living in Concord.
I really like that. I added Jane, unmuted Jane, because she needs to leave in a few minutes, and I wanted to at least say hi. Hey, Jane.
Hey, Nikita.
How is your day?
This is such a cool idea. I hope it continues.
We'll see. How's your day? Are you worried about this? Do you care much?
No, I do live in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, and
that's the state that
the linchpin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Elon Musk was at the town hall, like right down the street. Lots of interesting stuff and way too many text messages. I keep getting texts from, "Hi, it's Kamala," and it's like, oh man. So I voted. The school is right up the street. I voted, and I kind of split. I'm registered independent, but I kind of split my vote around too. But I follow a lot of politics. I follow a lot of journalists and podcasts, and I can't help but be entertained by Trump as the bullshitter that he is, but he's still kind of funny. But anyway, it's interesting time, so fingers crossed that whatever happens, as I think Stephanie mentioned, it does take a while for things to come through. So we'll see. We'll survive. We've got guardrails.
Okay. Well, I'm happy that you joined for at least for a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. I hope to join next time too, and always nice to follow you and read you. Very
Thanks.
Interesting fellow. Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm gonna try to get back into this.
Okay. Well, nice to see everybody too. Bye.
Hi, Jane.
Bye.
Jason, back to you. I want to hear more. So how did the hat thing work? Did you actually make those people wear the hats?
Well, I couldn't do that, but it was a presentation, so I'm up at the podium, and I'm looking. That's it's a little bit nerve-wracking because you're looking directly at all of these people, and I was about to insult, and they were all close to 3 times my age, so it was. But for that particular presentation, I opened with just reading the First Amendment verbatim, just to make it clear that because I felt like I was probably going to be censored, but because I read the First Amendment before doing my spiel, at one point the mayor interjected and turned to the city attorney who was sitting up there with them, and he kind of just looked at her and shrugged. He was like, I can't. You have no authority to shut this guy up.
So you got the 10%. Did you continue your political career?
No, that was it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the pressure. And I just, there were a couple events I went to where I felt like I might have been paranoid, but so for example, there was the union. Who was it? It was the AFL-CIO held a thing at the Marriott where they invited all the local politicians to come listen to their pitch, basically, which is that we, as a union voting bloc, represent this percentage of your constituency, and here are the things we want from you if you want our support. And again, like I said, I was probably being paranoid, but I noticed that they had very large, muscular men standing at all of the exits. And I just thought, I'm about to lose my kneecaps here. Yeah, and then, you get, the moment your name is out there as a candidate, you're getting solicited by a ton of special interest groups. You're getting solicited by
that's interesting.
campaign management companies. We'll print your signs, et cetera, et cetera. It was, and this again, like, this is at the very dawn of the World Wide Web, so it was just, I was completely overwhelmed with all the attention I was suddenly getting, and I realized I didn't actually want to be a public figure.
This is so interesting. I'm reading Navalny's autobiography now, about halfway through, I think. So it's a very strange and interesting read because he started writing it after he got poisoned. So he's in Germany, sort of recovering. And the first chapter is good prose. It's like, he's talking about his childhood. He starts out with the poisoning and then goes back to the childhood, and it's like reads like a proper book, which I didn't quite expect. But then, events turn. He needs to continue writing this book as he goes back to Russia and he's put in jail. And then he's writing from prison. And then the tenor changes because it's less polished and it's more informal, sort of conversational, and not
edited. Does he explain that that's happening?
Yeah.
Is he in the text? He's saying, "Meanwhile, I'm going back to Russia."
Yeah, he's like telling his story and going back and forth between different times. Tells the story about how he goes back to Russia, and there's one chapter that he details how he goes back to Russia. He gets arrested at the airport. He's transported to prison, and he's sitting there, or not. I forget the difference between prison and jail, whatever the preliminary detention center was at the time. And he asks the guards for a book to read, and they say, maybe tomorrow, can do now. And he says, do you have a newspaper? And they say, we don't. And he's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Do you have at least pen and paper? And they give him pen and paper. And then the last line of the chapter is, and this is how I wrote this chapter. So that this is the first one that's written from captivity. And then I assume down the road, knowing the arc of the story, at some point he starts spending a lot of his time on solitary confinement. At first he writes a lot of letters, I know, to people, and then at some point his access to pen and paper is limited to an hour a day. And I think later there is even less of that, so I assume that the book is going to change entirely in its format because it's going to become short, disparate notes from prison. But the reason I remember this is you're telling me about your foray into politics, and the chapter I'm on now is about his early steps when he joined a liberal political party. And you're saying, the attention was overwhelming, and his experience was, he's like a driven young guy. He decides he doesn't like that Putin was installed as president. He wants to do something about it. He decides, I'm going to join a party. He looks at the list of the parties, decides these don't work for this reason, those he can go with for another reason. And he settles on this liberal, the party that my parents used to vote for, that never amounted to much in my lifetime, but said all the nice things. And his experience is, he comes in and they're looking at him surprised, like, what do you mean? Why would you want to join a party? Why are you trying? What are you trying to do here? And he's a really driven, energetic guy who wants to do things. And what he sees is a party that's there to just sit around, and nobody's trying to fight for anything. And so he gets really frustrated, and eventually the thing that I just finished reading is his speech when he was excluded from the party for it's contested what the actual reason was, but the party said that his palling around with nationalists was the problem, and he thinks that the problem was that he didn't like the leadership of the party and thought that the guy is not corrupt, but I guess you could say corrupt, is there to, again, play the role of what's called systemic opposition, not try to actually change anything, but just to be a part of the spectacle. So it's just different experiences. America sounds like a lively place. You can step into this world, and suddenly a lot of things are happening around. And with Navalny, he had to shake the situation around him time and time again to get something going.
Yeah, I mean, he had more powerful motivation too.
Yeah.
Even as crazy as things are right now, but certainly in 2000, life was just so comfortable.
Right.
Fascism, you see that word thrown around so much, and I just don't think it works in a country that's as pluralistic as the U.S. I don't see a way that actually ever computes. It seems like a ridiculous thing to worry about here because there are just way too many disparate interests.
That's kind of my latest sort of evolution on my understanding of America. Is I used to think, like, when I was 20 something and I was just starting to watch The Daily Show, let's say, and I was starting to build a picture of what the United States is. It was like, they have these two parties. For some reason, like, taxes and abortion and guns are the things that these care about. And like, you just start to put the presentation together. And at that time, my understanding was that there's this system that works, that was designed with this balance in mind. And there's like the word design is key here. Like the thing works because it's a good system that was created to evolve and balance itself out. And what I'm starting to think now is less that there's this beautiful design and more that there's just too many different interests and groups and actors and players. And so the reason it sustains itself and does balance itself out is not because it was beautifully designed to do so, or maybe that to a part, but what's more at play now, what I'm seeing more right now, is not like the design working out, the system working as planned. It's not about the system specifically. It's just there's such a chaotic ocean of different interests battling it out that it's hard for anyone to really take all the power.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is just a theory, but the larger your sample size gets, the more average your outcomes. And it just seems, when I look at the election results from year to year and how close they always are, it's always tight. People are winning by 1%, 2%. Things even out so much, it sometimes feels like what we're actually observing is a biological process. The issues that we think we're voting on are just the cover, but that there's something deeper running through society that just makes people form groups like this.
Say more.
So I mean, and it's, what do they call it? It's regression to the mean, right? And so it's like so many other things that where we back narrate our experiences. Consciousnesses, we have our feed coming in all the time as we look around, and it's happening so quickly that our brain is scurrying to place label on everything, but the thing has already happened, technically speaking. I really feel that when you see these what seem like perfect divisions in a society like this, where, again, like I said, I have a feeling this is going to be another one of those drawn out legal battles because the results were so close. It feels like this is something. This is anthropological. It's not political anymore. This is something that it's almost like it's not even linguistic. It's something else.
There's an article that I haven't read. I just got emailed a link to from another one of the conversation that I had one-on-one when I was doing those, which I think I'll start doing again, was with a Russian immigrant in the United States who does work sort of in Bob Wright's sphere of things, talking about the noosphere and whatnot. And so he sent me this article that I'm just going to share it. I have no idea what this is about, but I think it is in line with what you're talking about, because the title is Narrative Warfare and the Noosphere in Steve Bannon's Populist Revolt. I wanna take a look at it. This is what I'm interested in. There's like the narratives that are out there about what is going on. The old, what I was describing, when I was starting to watch The Daily Show back in Russia when I was 21. Here's a political system. There are two parties. They're battling it out. The division is about taxes and abortion and guns and, something else. And this doesn't seem like the thing to me anymore. Then you've got the Trump-Bannon narrative about the populist revolt, and it's a different narrative. It's a little more compelling because at least it's new, it's like fresh. People are trying to come up with a way to talk about what they're doing, but not entirely compelling to me either. And the more we're going through what we're going through, since for me it's like since the war in Ukraine started, there's such, or since COVID, you might say, there's such an increase in weirdness and absurdity with high stakes. There is just today I saw apparently the first clash between the Ukrainian and the North Korean armies has happened in Russia, in Kursk region. Like, that to me, when I first heard about Russia and North Korea, they signed that pact, a military alliance, that was my thought, but I thought it's a joke. I thought that my thought was I'm being humorous. I thought wouldn't it be funny to see the Kursk region recaptured, not by Russian forces, but by North Korea? How would the people in Kursk feel about North Korean soldiers marching through their city? And I thought it's a silly thought. Turns out it wasn't. Turns out it's the reality that we're living in. And before that, there was Prigozhin marching on Moscow, and before he marched on Moscow, he just emerged as this guy who goes to prisons to recruit prisoners, and over and over and over, you know, it's just like the level of you know, things that have to grab your attention because they're so out of the norm has been increasing. And the more that happens, the more I'm looking for a wholly different way of looking at things, mythological or religious or something metaphorical. I'm intrigued by the ideas like Prigozhin is a good example, because I think he could be this is one of my notes here somewhere on this board that I don't know what to do with, but the note is Prigozhin is a lesser deity of war propaganda and commerce. And the reason I'm using those words, lesser deity, because he's so you know, such a trickster, such a weird, you don't know whether it's happening or not happening. When he was starting to march towards Moscow, the first messages we were getting, we were looking at these Telegram channels and audio notes from Prigozhin, voice messages saying, you know, I'm here in this town and we're gonna march to the next one. And at first, the reaction among many was, this is bullshit. This is some kind of spectacle. It can't be really happening. But then he takes a city. He takes Rostov-on-Don, and there are tanks in the middle of the city, and he sits in the you know, the military headquarters and scolds the local military leaders. And then he's marching towards Moscow. And so as this is happening, you can't quite figure out whether it's real or not. And I still can't quite, I mean, it was real, but it happened and then it stopped happening and there was no climax. It was just Lukashenko got on the phone with him and said, Zhenya, what are you doing? And then he kind of disappeared. And then he died, apparently, in that helicopter crash, or the helicopter explosion. The helicopter was obviously, you know, detonated. But I'm reading several books at the same time, and one is about him and the Wagner group. And you know, on the first pages, there's a fact that I didn't know that to me is somehow very important. And the fact is, when they buried Prigozhin after he was killed in this helicopter explosion, the funeral was secret. It was guarded, and you know, nobody knew beforehand, like the public was not aware where this is happening. And they put the casket in the ground. And I think throughout the night it was guarded, so you couldn't come in. And so in the morning, when the cops left and you could go to the grave, leaning against a wooden cross, there was a picture of Prigozhin and a poem by Brodsky, who used to be, when I was like in my 20s, I loved his poetry. And I know this poem. It's a short poem about Jesus dying on the cross and his mother kneeling in front of the cross and saying, how can I go home without understanding or having decided whether you are God or man, and therefore whether you're alive or you're dead. Now, so this is a government-organized funeral by a guy whose body we haven't seen. You know, the helicopter exploded. We were told he's dead. He was buried in secrecy, and the next morning they decided to put a poem by Brodsky next to the grave that ends with the question, are you dead or are you alive? It seems like a straightforward hint to maybe him not being dead. And we'll probably never know, right? There is not like you're gonna find proof, probably, that he's dead or alive. And he's the kind of person that, you know, if somebody in the Russian political reality today would pull something like that off, that'd be the guy, because he had, when they raided his compound, they found there are these funny pictures of passports on fake names, and in one of them he has a beard, and the one that he's wearing a toupee. He's a wild character. And so to me, where I'm sitting now, the question is not so much whether he's dead or alive and what actually happened in reality, but more, is there a way of talking about these things that would start to make sense to me? Because right now it's like, on the one hand, grim, dire realities of people dying in wars, and on the other hand, these over-the-top spectacles going on, on TV or in your Twitter feed or whatever, where you're kind of glued to the screen because it's, oh my God, this is happening, that is happening. But it's all disparate. It's all just like bits and pieces of something happening in different areas. And you're kind of left, there's nothing to do about it. It's just, like watching a train wreck or watching a reality TV show that you're not sure you should be watching. Somebody said, I like this metaphor. Somebody on a podcast said that the reason this particular election is so over the top in the United States is like, this is the 47th election. This is season 47 of the show. You have to reach for the most attention-grabbing turn you can come up with. No TV show is good on season 47. You have to top the previous one, and so you end up with this bizarreness. There are a couple of people here who haven't spoken. I don't know how to pronounce your handles, Aida and An. Does any one of you want to join in? There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have enjoyed your conversations, Nikita, with Robert Wright. Wondered if you saw his commentary on his site as far as whatever happens in the election. There are always unintended consequences, and we all need to just calm down and have cognitive empathy came up.
Mm-hmm.
Not emotional empathy, but cognitive. So anyway, you guys have been great conversation partners.
Thank you.
Yes. But about the election, I work for a think tank, a nonpartisan one in Philadelphia. And so I probably shouldn't say who I'm going to vote for, but still need to vote today.
Okay. Yeah, I was talking to Glenn Lowry, and his formulation was, I'm not going to tell you who I'm voting for, but I've known Cornel West for a long time, and he's a decent, articulate, and warm individual. Did Bob's spiel make an effect? Were you worried before you heard him, and are you less worried now?
I'm still worried about what could happen afterwards, given what happened in 2020.
Right.
It interests me. I have another question for you, though, because you are younger than I am by far. And to hear you talk about two books that you're reading carefully, I mean, do you find that being in the digital world so much makes your attention span shorter?
That's why I'm reading,
I like to go.
That's why I'm reading multiple books at the same time, because I can't focus on one. And I see. And it's not often that I finish the books that I read. I get to the middle or 2/3 along the way, or 1/3 or whatever. This is how I know that this book actually, is important for some reason to me, is when I read it until the end, and it doesn't happen very often, to be honest.
Interesting. Do you like to be off the screens and read print books?
I love it, but I have a hard time doing that.
Okay.
There's
Yes.
My wife is in Russia right now in a place that she calls her place of power. It's a village in the south, in the Pskov region, and the whole point of the place originally was it's so quiet and there's no reception. So when we would go there, when COVID hit in 2020, we spent like half of our summer there, and for both of us, it's some of the best times of our lives because there's nothing going on. There's just the sounds that you hear are the sounds of animals, and the wind, the leaves in the wind, and you are not distracted by whatever's happening online because you can't even call anybody. Like the phone was not working properly there, so you're just reading books, you're writing things. And I used to, there's probably some video someplace from my time with working for Bob. I was working for him at the time, and when I needed to have a work call with him, we would drive to an abandoned совхоz field where there was reception, and it was just a bizarre but beautiful experience. So we're like completely off the grid in this house, and we're just talking, reading, drawing, taking walks, making food, and then for work, when I need the internet connection, we drive like 15 minutes out in the middle of nowhere, and I go into this field, and there's reception there. And over time, like over a few weeks, I built a little like stand for myself there, and I would just stand in the middle of the field with this wooden thing that I built, and there's reception, and there's a military base nearby, so helicopters flying above me, and I would do my work calls that way. There's like
oh, that's fascinating.
Where are you and what's going on? There's like a chopper flying behind me. But that was a great time, and now it's spoiled because now my wife's parents live there, and as they live there, you do need connection. They figured a way out to bring it there, and they put some antenna someplace or whatever, and now there's internet there, and it's comfortable. You can do all the things that you need the internet for, but the magic is not quite there. I'm getting complaints from my wife. She went there hoping to relax, and she's still working or reading the news or whatever, because now it's possible to do those things.
Oh yes.
How about you?
I find the greatest hours was 9 to 10 at night to be able to read a hardcover book. But now I'm tempted by podcasts because I can close my eyes and just listen, and there are a lot of great ones. And so I can only imagine for younger folks how much of a push-pull there would be to be doing other things and reading full books.
The main way that I read these days, not the last week, but like day to day normally, is I stole it from Glenn Lowry. There was a Q&A, and somebody asked him, how do you maintain harmony in the relationship in your family when you and your wife are politically on the opposite sides of the spectrum? He's conservative, she's left-wing. And one of the things he mentioned is he reads, or they read to one another, I'm not sure, but they read out loud before sleep to each other. And I thought that's so sweet, and I decided I'm gonna try that. And so now, even when Karina doesn't really need or want, like she's fallen asleep already, she doesn't need me to read to her, I kind of force it into the situation, and I read a couple of pages for her as she's fallen asleep, and then she's asleep, and I continue to read for a little longer. And that way, at least a few pages I will do every day, at least a couple. And sometimes if a book grabs me, I read more. But lately,
that's excellent.
Lately, there have been some books that actually did grab my attention. There's this author Pelevin, who's I've been reading my entire life, basically a weird Russian character who's for the last 10 years been publishing a book a year. And his latest I read in a sitting. And now Navalny is also, I'm halfway through and I've been just a few days at it.
Did Navalny's wife have a hand in polishing that book?
She definitely did, but I don't know the details. She said that she was like working on it. There is a little bit. It's hard to say. I was kind of, when I bought it, I was apprehensive a little bit because I was expecting that I will be reading it and guessing which parts are his writing and which parts are his team or his wife making some kind of a statement out of the the raw materials. So far it hasn't been the case because the more polished bits, as I said, are like in the beginning when we know that those chapters were written before captivity, and they are less importance in the political sense. Like they're better written, they're more polished, but it's like him remembering his childhood in he lived in this like военный городок, like a military, not quite military base, but like a town next to the base where most people are connected to the military. And so there, him remembering the childhood, him giving some kind of a description of what his view of the Soviet reality was, this and that. It's better written, it's more polished, but it seems that that is the case because there was time for this and maybe collaboration too. I mean, I saw that the way they sell it, the way they say how it happened is the first chapters he would narrate. So he would talk and his spokesperson would write it down. And his spokesperson is a writer, like she publishes fiction. So it would make sense that they would collaborate and, come up with better sounding sentences or, plot devices or whatever. But it's not, so far at least, there hasn't been a thing that I read that seemed like a political move on the part of the living, when the person who wrote it is not here anymore. So far it seems authentic. And he has a style, like those first chapters are kind of weird if you know his style, because he's been blogging his whole life, his whole political career. And so he has a particular sense of humor and a particular, way of writing. And those better written ones are a little surprising in how it's like it's an actual book. It's a different genre. He's actually pulling this off. But then when it gets to actually the more political bits, you really hear his voice, which isn't necessarily like that. There's a passage where he's talking about Yeltsin and he's chastising himself for supporting Yeltsin in the 90s when Navalny himself was like a teenager, 16 and 20, I think, in one and the second election where Yeltsin won. But so there are a few pages of him talking about Yeltsin, and it's so very emotional. It's not like a historical analysis. It's not if it was somebody else writing, you wouldn't pause long to listen to this position. It's just him kind of sharing his feelings and thoughts on this, but it's more emotion than some kind of analysis, but it's him. You can see that this is the guy that we've known.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should be wrapping up soon, but Aida, you're here. You haven't said anything. Do you want to say anything?
Hi, Nikita. No,
Hi.
Thank you very much for writing the articles. I lived some of my life in Iraq, some of my life in Romania, so we're not very far border-wise. Experienced some very strange situations that I couldn't understand as a child, and I'm still baffled that they keep on happening. It just doesn't make sense to me what's happening from political point of view, and it doesn't make sense the influence that goes on. That the fact that the people at the ground level are friends, and still the decisions that are taking above our heads are really making no sense. So I've been reading you and following what you're saying. I can't call myself in any way as a big follower of the political situations because it makes no sense. As I said, I lived under Ceausescu, I lived under Saddam, I lived in different conditions, and I'm in the West now. I still doesn't make sense. I don't understand how into a world that self calls so advanced, and it is in many ways. The basic humanity, it's still not respected. That every time there's these 20 years past, we read more about the atrocities that happened when the documents have to be revealed to the public. But the fact that borders can be broken and influences are so big that it's incredible. Your speaker Joe before was talking about his wife being from Basra, and I was just reading Asne Seierstad, the Norwegian correspondent who wrote 101 Days, and she was there in 2002 in Baghdad. She was mentioning the Jewish situation. She was mentioning the children being burned in my own family or my immediate family. There's so many people who have lost their lives post-war because of the nuclear, the usage of nuclear weapons. And this is why I'm following what you're saying, because it doesn't make any sense. Like in my husband's family, there were 6 or 7 sisters from the same family who lived in Basra at the time and who lost their lives to different types of cancer. And they were all linked to the use of radioactive material during the war. And it wasn't done by Saddam, and all these kind of fabrications and plasters and continue. And this is what is shocking, and that's why I'm following you, because somehow it puts in humanity and gives some understanding about the mockery that happens up there, controls our lives, really. I'm not sure I'm making any sense here, but no, I'm trying to get some reason and some humanity. And your art, your speaking, your lines seem a little seem more to the point and more revealing and less of a hypocrisy. So thank you.
Thank you. That's I appreciate this a lot. Can you say more? So I don't know much about what you're describing. What are the nuclear weapons that were used? Was it weapons or was it the nuclear materials that
it's not a full nuclear weapon, but there was nuclear material used in the American warfare in Iraq when they ousted Saddam.
I was not aware of this.
Yeah.
Wow.
And there were some of the passages that I read from Asne Sisters. I'm currently reading it. I was just reading it literally before you came on live. She was warned by colleagues when the American troops were coming near Baghdad that she should be wearing her chemical, the gas masks and protection. And the message said something to the extent that, and specifically wear it when the wind blows from the location of the American troops towards Baghdad. So this to me implies some, there are other underlying things, and yeah, there's so much put on done in somebody else's name.
Yeah.
And there's so much double standard, and there's so much hurting your own people to show somebody else that they're not heard. They're heard by somebody else. It's just crazy. Yeah. It's just crazy, and it's fake, and it's happening, and this is what the biggest pain is. It's still happening, and we're still shutting up. And I am putting myself to it. Actually, part of the book, I haven't finished it yet, but part of the book was talking about a young Finn, a Finnish student, an 18-year-old, who offered himself to be a human shield in Baghdad to protect some big, target installations like the power plant. And he decided that he goes there and he volunteers because he was hoping that his act would put some sense into the minds of people who have so much power to decide what's happening in the world.
So he just stood in front of the target, or what?
There were some human shields used at that time. They offered themselves to go into Baghdad, and the officials preferred to use them on big installations, that were obviously going to be targets like power plants and communication centers and things like that, and bridges. And a lot of them, when they decided that they want to actually protect orphanages and hospitals and schools, or people where vulnerable people lived.
But how were they protecting these places? So you're saying there's a Finnish person, there's one guy. What does he do?
He wasn't alone. There were many people. It was a big group of human shields. There were people coming from all over the world to offer their support. So
it would be they were like basically protect, like sort of like, like when people chain themselves to trees that are about to cut down, something like that.
Similar to that, yeah, similar to that. So they were hoping that the media, the journalists, the foreign correspondents who were allowed in Iraq are going to report, and the whole world will know about it. And this is the Finnish young man's words, that hopes that George Bush is going to come to his senses, basically, and stop hurting civilians and decide whatever it is to be done to be done on a more peaceful means. I didn't finish the book, so I did not know what happens, but at the end, most of the human shield people, having been there for months, they were tired, they were scared. Things started roughing up. The local authorities, the regime was very hard, and it's hard is probably an understatement, but many of them left, and he decided he stayed home. And he was explaining, he was talking to the journalist who wrote the book, that no, I'm staying. I know my parents want me to go home, and I know that it doesn't make logic sense to lose my life at such an early age, but I'm very sure I can't live with myself if I leave now. Unless I've done everything. He says, yeah, I'm willing. I know that me losing my life, it's a big probability. But I refuse to back off. Yeah, so this is what it doesn't make sense. I had relatives that I lost, I have. But this is not the personal level, it's the grand scale of things that is happening now, and we're living in it.
No, I hear you. I remember in the early days of the Russia-Ukraine war, when I was still in Russia, like the first few days were just, you know, kind of a shock, and you're constantly checking not messages, but like updates on what's going on, because situation is changing so quickly. And there was a moment where, so I would like sleep with my phone next to me, and I wake up usually a few times during the night, but normally I wake up and I go back to sleep. At that time, I would wake up and I would check if something else has happened. And in one of those like in between sleep periods, I'm looking it up, and there's news about fighting around or at a nuclear plant in Ukraine. And I kind of read it. I go back to sleep after a while. And in this in between wake and sleep modes, I'm laying in my bed and I'm not sure whether it's a bizarre dream that I just had, or whether it's the news. This is the reality. Because up until that point, when I read the piece of news, it never occurred to me that people would be fighting at a nuclear plant. Like it makes sense as a premise for a movie. It makes sense as a level in a computer game, but to read it in the news seemed just, again, too over the top, too much. And that feeling, I like these things that I've mentioned before in this conversation with Prigozhin. You know, Trump is kind of in a similar, like it's not the same, you know, he's not waging any wars, I guess. Like he actually, his first term was the first one in a while that no new war started by the US. And so right now what they're doing is this like political theater, and so that I can't really feel that invested, because the stakes are not, you know, it's politics, whatever. But there's the same quality of feeling, is this what reality is supposed to be like? Is it like, it seems a little on the nose, almost like it's a little much.
Surreal.
Yeah.
It's surreal. It is surreal. It's like you're in a Dali or in a
exactly.
Chirico painting, and you say, no, this can't be happen. It's just a stage prop, and there's not. And this is the scary part. I was actually in Romania, when very close to the border, when the Chernobyl reactor blew. So this is for me the question: are we really not learning anything? And in Iraq, yes, they did use depleted uranium tips. We really don't learn anything. Who is it that is really behind all this? Who is really writing the script?
Well, that's the thing. And is there somebody who is writing the script?
Yeah. Or how many hands are writing the script?
Yeah.
Or from which points of view? Because it's just the old adage that money talks, and there's so many places in the world that are under political tension, or led tyrannically, or whatever, in whatever other form that is not, non-democratic. But nobody bothers, because they have no economic advantage, no political advantage in going and helping those poor buggers. Excuse me. Yeah, so what makes sense? I don't know. At ground level, it doesn't. It just continues to be, and specifically now that we have such a big power into play, and seems so undecisive and so divisive in itself. that the election days is it's watched by so many people, you know.
Yeah, I keep, like, I guess the part of the reason I'm doing this, I decided to try to start doing these calls, is this is the one thing where I do kind of touch ground, is when I talk to other people. And when I talk to other people, I rarely encounter the, you know, us versus them kind of approach. What I often hear is the kinds of things you're saying right now. You know, it's hard to understand why this is happening, what exactly is happening, who's running the game in the large scale of things. But on an individual level, when I meet a specific person, I talk to them, you know, I want to root my experience in my relation to the big picture in this, in like actual human beings, each of whom has a life, each of whom has feelings and confusions and anxieties and a story and unanswered questions and all the rest.
I'm not sure if you're running out of time, but when I was very young, I lived on a street in Baghdad, and there were, I think we were all denominations on that road. There were Christians of at least two types of, you know, religious inclinations. There were Shia, and there were Sunni, and there were, I think, a Jewish doctor lived not very far, and there was absolutely no issue. We celebrated. I remember celebrating different kind of, you know, we had Christmas. My mother is Christian, my father is Muslim. My mom would bake the special things for Christmas, and we'll put the tree up, and we'll take things to neighbors, and then the neighbors brought stuff to us. And well, there were some kind of jokes, I mean, on the humor side, or sometimes there were tongue-in-cheek things between one group of people and the other, but never aggression. So who's fueling all this? And, you know, really at ground level, there is no problem.
Yeah.
My children went to schools, to international schools, and when you take them to a particular country, they're a little bit shocked to see a single color or a single tongue being spoken. They grew up with everything. So what kind of world we're leaving them? I'm not sure. I don't sound pessimistic. I think there's a lot of good people there. The problem is, who are we choosing to lead us? Because I think everybody's responsible for it.
Yeah, I'm not... That whole area of questions to me is unanswered, and I feel like I don't know which questions I'm supposed to be asking. Like the question of power, you know, who's responsible, who's making decisions, and why. It's very confusing to me, because again, on the individual level, you can talk to whomever. Like on these conversations, I talk with people all over the world, or sometimes you talk to a taxi driver in some place, and it's strange to think that from that, on the ground level, you have people with, you know, not everybody has a very nuanced view of the world, but even those whose views are not so nuanced, you talk to them a little, and, you know, you come to you will elaborate on whatever the original premise was. But on the big scale, there's just, let's start another war and kill people in industrial numbers, and
exactly.
How one translates to another, I don't quite understand. I think I don't know. I don't know even what is the right question to ask. So that's part of the reason I'm drawn to these, like I talked about Prigozhin, like I'm intrigued by this idea of, instead of trying to figure out the practical details of how he built his military operation or other businesses, or how the kind of economic journalist way of looking at, like I'm reading this book and it details the nitty-gritty of the operation, and that's very interesting, but I somehow feel that this is the details that lead us away from the bigger question that I don't know how to ask. So I'm intrigued by these like metaphorical or mythological or whatever interpretations, or a search for a new language to talk about these things. Because it's just weird. Like if you just write it out in this rational way, I don't know. We've been doing this for a long time, and it doesn't seem to lead anywhere. It leads to just like it doesn't give me a handle on how I'm to relate to this and what I'm to do in relation to these things. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense what I just said?
Well, it sounds like at ground level we have no problem, basically, or whatever it is, it's solvable. I just heard recently that the opposite of peace, of war, it's not peace, it's just the absence of war. There will always be differences, and most often than not, differences take you to better things. They usually lead you to a creative field in which you can express more, in which by diverging you actually come up with other things that gets you more critical about the whatever subject it is hand. But then if we can solve the small things and we can get along by and large at ground level, what is the intermediary link? I mean, what is the process through which we're going and we're getting it so wrong that we can't keep the balance straight once we have the top people chosen? Look at the Scandinavian countries. How does that work?
What about them?
I just think, for example, Finland, now speaking about the Finnish young man who was a human shield, I just find them more humane, understated, did their thing right. They're a lot more humane. Really not flashy. I mean, to boast, it's a shame, which is part of the humility, and I find humility part of a very, very good characteristic of human beings in general, if they do own it. And I don't know, it's more real. It's not Disney. They live hard, so they know how to appreciate life. I lived in Romania, and what you're saying about not having communication, it's a bliss. If you go to the countryside and you have no connections and you can connect whenever controlled, that's different. But still, look what's happening after the revolution. I don't know. I go back to Scandinavia. I think they found a model that somehow keeps people more humble and minding their business, if you don't mind me saying so.
I think so I don't know much. I've been to Finland once, but barely, and the rest of the Scandinavian countries I haven't been to. But I've got friends here who lived in Norway for, I think, maybe about 8 years or something. The guy's Russian, and the girl is Israeli Norwegian. She's one of those. Her parents met in a prison where the father was a convict and the mother was the guard. So it's a romance between the convict and the guard, and she's a product of that. But so they lived in Norway for, I think about 8 years. And what they tell me about the Norwegian people is the minding your own business bit is very important. The reservedness, it's and it's not always from the positive side of things. Like there are good sides to this and there are bad sides to this, where it's difficult to connect with people when they're so guarded and reserved and they're minding their own business. But I don't know much. I haven't really experienced the Scandinavia. My wife really wants to go there lately. She's from a small northern town in Russia. It's the far north of Russia, Arkhangelsk. And now we're, Africa is nearby. We're in Malaga, Spain. It's the very south. And it's where she's from is a port city. And this is a port city, but it's just the exact opposite of one another. And it's, kind of surreal to find ourselves here with palm trees and parrots in those palm trees in January when we came here. And so lately she's been watching these Scandinavian crime dramas where it's dark sky, it's people, it's not a lot of light, it's people with serious faces solving a murder. And she's watching these TV shows and she's like, I don't know if it's a good idea to, her birthday is in January. And she says, I don't know if it's a good idea to go to Scandinavia in January, but God damn it, I kind of want to go to one of those grim places where it's quiet and dark and sad and just reconnect to the north.
It's just maybe the feeling that it's more real.
Yeah, you can, yeah. But I mean, it's
bare, it's stripped of all pretense. I mean, it can't be any.
It's harder to do pretense as you're shoveling snow.
Happy birthday anticipated. Early one.
I'll relate to her. Okay.
Thank you for your time and
thank you.
Word.
Thank all of you.
Thank you, Nikita.
Thank all of you so much. I didn't know if anybody would show up, and if people do, then what's gonna happen. But I'm very happy with how my day has gone now, thanks to this.
I agree. Thank you to all of us.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody. We'll do it again sometime.
Bye.
Good. Bye-bye.
So.
Bye-bye. Thank you.